Good morning everyone, welcome to Gracegate today. We're so glad that you've decided to join us for church online this morning. You might be connecting with your phone or with your laptop, or perhaps you're even on the TV screen this morning. But whatever it is, we're just glad that you're here and that you've chosen to spend your Saturday morning with us.
And my name's Wesley, and Megs, it is so awesome to be joining you this morning for church online. We're currently in lockdown level 3 here in New Zealand, and that's why we still find it an awesome privilege that we can have church online. And we want to know this morning, Megs, who we're actually sharing church online. So we'd love you currently in your bubbles. Why don't you take a photo? Why don't you take a short video or
a boomerang?
A boomerang, Megs, that's it, a boomerang. And why don't you tag at Gracegate Centre on that post, either on Instagram or Facebook, because we'd love to see who we're sharing this morning with our church family.
If this is your first time joining us for a Gracegate program, we just wanted to say a very special welcome to you. We've got a few sayings here at Gracegate that we like to throw around, but Wes, would you like to share with us what some of those sayings are?
Yeah, well, that's true. If it is your first time, we want you to know that no perfect people are allowed here. We're a community that believes that you don't have to believe in God to belong here. And we just want you to know that you matter to God, and because you matter to God, you matter to us. And we're a whole bunch of friends just trying to figure out faith and life together. So we've got an awesome program in store today, and we're so glad that you can be a part of it.
So we hope you enjoy your time here with us today. Make sure you say hi and just jump into the chat bar. You can even do that right now and just say good morning to everyone who's joining us online today.
So Megs, how has your lockdown been this past week?
My lockdown's been pretty good. I've had the whole family at home for the week, other than mum for a few days because she's an essential worker. But yeah, it's just been a lot of uni and a lot of study for me. How's your week been though?
My lockdown has been really good. It's been cool to be home with my newly born baby that's only 3 weeks old. And we've been spending a lot of time together and being able to help my wife Zalia. So it's been, not that bad actually being at home this past week.
Wow, that sounds like something to celebrate. And I think there's a few things that we should be celebrating that we've gotten up to at Gracegate this week. Hey, Wes?
That's right.
That's right. So on Friday night, we had our Radiate Youth Group meeting up on Zoom for a night of fun, games, activities. We had a chat and we're chatting about friends and how friends love each other well. But we thought maybe instead of us telling you about the celebrations that we've had this week, perhaps we should get people straight from the source. So Wes, I believe that we've got a video from a whole bunch of people involved in the different environments at Gracegate. So maybe we should take a look at that.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Good morning. I'd like to celebrate the young mums who are raising their kids right, so our future's looking good. I'd also like to celebrate the men's group. There's a bunch of blokes just doing life together, and we've realised if we raise our sons right, our daughters are safe. See ya.
This week we are celebrating Women's Life Group because
it's an environment in which I can grow in my faith.
It's a chance for me to get to know and support other women in the Gracegate community.
And have fun and become closer to God through others' experiences.
Hey Gracegate, Caitlin here. My celebration for the week, I'm so stoked that Spark still got to happen. We all watched a movie on Netflix Party, so it was just so good being able to build those connections still, especially in a time where we're all struggling with the isolation thing. It was just so much fun going on Netflix Party, watching Jurassic World, all chatting, laughing, like how is she running away from a dinosaur in high heels? Oh, they're all dead. Oh, bad idea, all of that was just so great. So thank you so much, Jordan, for setting that up for us. I'm so happy that I still got to talk to everyone that I would normally talk to every week this week.
We're celebrating life groups today because it's a great way to connect and share with each other, to do life and to explore the Word in so many different ways.
And last night we had life group for the first time since we've been married, which was really great to catch up with everyone, even though it was only over Zoom. But we got to meet little Harper for the first time, and it was really special. And we talked about being still, which was, a really important and encouraging word in this season. And it's just awesome to know that people have your back.
It's so awesome to see that our church community has still been connecting this past week. And I love it, even though we're in lockdown, that this church is not just about being a church on a Saturday, but we're running all different programs. And thanks just to the team and to everyone who's still connecting. And maybe you're feeling out and maybe you didn't connect with anyone this past week. I want you to know that straight after this program today, we're going to have a Zoom group, and we'd love for you to join us. We're going to be reflecting on the message that's going to be shared today, as well as just connecting with each other. So we'd love to see you there straight after this program. All the details of the Zoom group are going to pop up on the screen, so make sure you join us.
So today we are going to be continuing with our Take Flight series. It's been an awesome series so far. We've had 2 weeks where we've been challenged to take some new action steps in our faith journey. We've spoken about serving, and we've spoken about connecting, and today Volta is going to be sharing with us about giving.
That's right. I'm really excited to hear Volta speak today. Whenever Volta speaks, I'm encouraged and challenged. And before we get there though, we want to take a moment just to quiet our spirit, quiet our souls. And we've got a song that we'd love you to listen to, and maybe even joining and sing along. Make yourself comfortable. You're in your own space at home. And let's just be receptive of these lyrics, and maybe use this song as a prayer.
Lasting arms that place me on the rock that stands, and I hold true to the one who breaks my fall and lifts me time and time again. Oh my God, so good, you never give up, you never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love, because of your love for me. Oh my God, so good, you never give up, you never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love, because of your love for me. Yeah. This freedom purchased by the highest price, this grace outweighing all my shame. 'Cause I'm made new through the power of sacrifice. From death now raised to life again. Oh my God, so good, you never give up, you never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love, because of your love for me. Oh my God, so good, you never give up, you never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love, because of your love for me. Yeah. You set this joy in my heart. And I'm not a slave to sin, so I'm singing. You are good. Buried with Christ to rise in your freedom. You are good. When you make a promise, Jesus, you keep it. You are good. So I praise your name as long as I'm breathing. 'Cause you are good. Come on. I'm not a slave to sin, so I'm singing. You are good. Buried with Christ to rise in your freedom. You are good. When you make a promise, Jesus, you keep it. You are good. So I praise your name as long as I'm breathing. 'Cause you are
Hey guys, for those who do not know me, my name is Byron. I've got a beautiful wife, Shanae. She works at Gracegate with the kids ministry. We've got an awesome little 1.5-year-old daughter called Elizabeth, and she just keeps us so busy all the time. We've been at Gracegate for about 2.5 years, and it's just been an awesome journey. For today's topic, we're sort of speaking a bit about giving or tithing, as some of us might know it, and it's a really touchy subject to speak about, even for Christians or non-believers. And if I think about speaking to people who don't consider themselves Christian, it's almost the number one thing that I always bring up is, I don't really want to give a tithe. I don't really see the value in it. And at the end of the day, I really think it's that lack of understanding of knowing exactly why we give. And if you think about it, everything in our lives revolve around money. You know, whether it's paying for your transport or going to work or paying for food, or the core little bit of it is actually that money aspect of it. And all God's doing is saying, hey, I want you to put me right in front of that, okay? Put me number one before this thing that we need the most in this world, is this money thing. I want you to put me first place. God's looking at your heart and says, how are you giving those finances? How are you sowing into the kingdom? What happens after that, to whomever you do that to, whether it's an individual or community, that's on them. That's what they have to stand accountable for. So I really want to challenge you not to focus on that aspect, but focus on your heart and giving. Giving in a community can make such a massive difference. I'm sure most of us have been touched by Gracegate in some way, shape or form, whether it's being part of a program or just coming to a church that's awesomely facilitated. Might be that you enjoy coming to the events like the block party or maybe the beach day. And all those things happen because someone sowed into the vision or sowed into the ministry. You know, you might think that your giving might not be enough or might not be of any significance, but your giving can maybe be the difference between something happening and not happening. And at the end of the day, someone's life might change by a program that started or an event that's happening where they have a complete turn in their life and give their lives to Jesus. And you know, it will make such a massive difference, even if it's just like such a small amount. And you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a financial sowing. It could be your time. You know, hey, we need people to help with something at the block party. You know, stick your hand up. That can be a part of giving to the community. This sort of like reminds me of this one testimony of what happened to us about 5 years ago when we just came to New Zealand. We stayed with a homestay family, and after staying with them for over a month, they said to us, look, we don't want you to pay for staying here at all. We want to bless you with that, and we want you to have a good start on your journey in New Zealand. I don't really think they really realized how much this meant to us. And through that, my family has placed a lot of like emphasis as like continue to give to people. We think there's a great opportunity for people to actually get a bit of a boost by doing this, and also wanting other people to receive what we've received at the end of the day. So that's why we place a really big importance on the whole aspect of giving and sort of paying it forward, if you will. Sort of reminds me of that scripture, Luke 6:38. I'm going to read it to you guys. It says, "Give and you will receive. Your gift will return to you in full, pressed down, shaken together, and make room for more, running over and poured into your lap. The amount you give will determine the amount you get back." I encourage everyone to start giving. It's a really good habit to get into. If you're at a stage in your life where you can't really afford that 10% or you can't really afford the amount, start small, but just go into that right direction. You know, if you, for instance, have a coffee every day before you go to work, it might mean that you're not going to have that coffee, and that's a sacrifice you need to make. Remember, it's by putting God first in your life, you know. Maybe you say, I can only afford $5 a month. Well, that's a start. It's a step in the right direction. Again, that tithe might seem insignificant to you, but it might mean the world to the next person.
I love that. I love how Byron and his family are not just speaking about generosity, but how they've implemented and practicing that in their lives, and how it's inspiring others around them and also increasing their faith in God in their lives. So thanks for sharing, Byron. So when I was 13 years old, my family and I got the opportunity to travel to the States. And it was awesome. We loved it. One of my highlights of the trip was that we hired an RV and we traveled along California, Arizona, a couple of the states on the western coast. And as a 13-year-old, my favorite thing about the whole trip was the food. Because I don't know about here in New Zealand, but I actually don't see it as much here. But over there, when you're a teenage boy, all you want to do is eat. And I had this appetite where I felt like I just never had enough. I could always just eat more and more. And so the food was awesome. And on one evening, we went to this buffet. And it was at this hotel. I still remember it so clearly. It was called the Excalibur Hotel. And it was this really fancy hotel. It had these red carpets. People were dressed nice. It was just this, we felt so out of place. Like, it was so fancy. And I remember it was the most amount of food that I have ever seen in my life in one place. It was just rows and rows of any food that you can imagine. Like the meats, the carbs, it was just rows and rows of food. The desserts, I think there were about 3 or 4 tables, rows of tables with just different types of desserts. And so we started eating, and we kept eating, and we kept eating. And then after a while, it was just my uncle and I that were still eating. And for my dad to finish eating at a buffet takes a lot. And so it was just my uncle and I left eating. And so we have had, at that point, we had like, maybe 5 or 6 plates of food. I was up to my 5th or 6th dessert. And I was really full. It was at that point where all I could fit in anymore was ice cream. Because I felt that could just kind of make its way around the food in my stomach. But I was eating ice cream, and I remember this moment where I just felt like I could not eat anymore. And I saw my uncle, and it turned into this competition to see who could last the longest. And so when he got up, I knew I had to get up, otherwise I would lose. And my uncle's a big man. I was a skinny 13-year-old, but I was incredibly competitive. And so he got up, and so I got up, and all I could fit in was strawberry ice cream. So I dished a bowl of strawberry ice cream. We came back, and I started eating it. And I remember that moment where I took a spoonful, and you know that, well, hopefully you don't know that moment, but that moment where you take a bite, and I remember just realizing that was 1 spoonful too many. And in that moment, I knew I was in trouble, and so I knew I had to find a bathroom quick. And so I turned around, and I saw one in the distance, and I started running to the bathroom because I knew I wasn't going to make this. And then it was this fancy red carpet, fancy people all around us, and I was running to the bathroom, and I think I made it to about halfway before my stomach decided to empty itself out on that red carpet. And the first thing that came out was strawberry ice cream, but a lot of other things came out after that as well. And I just remember being so embarrassed, but at that point, there was nothing much that I could do. So I turned around, and I walked back to my uncle, and the family was sitting there. I didn't know how they were going to react, but they were all cracking up laughing. And so I walked to my uncle, and I remember saying to him, "Shall we go get some more?" And I think if we're honest, that's often how we treat life, right? We treat it like I treated that buffet where we always feel like we need just a little bit more. We just need to go back for one more scoop of ice cream. Doesn't matter how much we already have. We always feel like we need a little bit more. Whether it's time, for some of us, I often hear it, we say, I just need a little bit more time. If I had a bit more time, I would be able to catch up with that person. If I had a bit more time, I'd be able to spend more time with my kids. Or maybe it's finances. If I just had a little bit more finances, I'd be able to do this or go on that trip, or I'd be able to give a little bit more. Or maybe it's another resource. Maybe it's our energy. If we had just a little bit more energy, we could do that. And if we're not careful, over time, we start living give me lives where we're always needing a little bit more before we start living the life that we want. We start living these give me lives. And that was actually studied by a Dutch researcher. Her name's Deborah Tramp. And they actually studied the effect that ads have on our lives. And so apparently all of us, on average, see about 5,000 ads per day. And so they were studying the effect that that has on our lives. And what she found was, and this is what they said, that people and companies are literally profiting off us, acquiring a deep belief that we need something more. And psychologists have now coined it the scarcity mindset, where essentially we become afraid as we live our lives that what we have won't be enough. And what it creates in us is this: it is a fear of not having enough. And so we sit and we wrestle with this tension, and at the same time, it doesn't even require research to convince us that there is a certain joy that comes from giving. That while we experience a fear of not having enough, there is also joy that comes from giving. And so our lives are lived in the middle of this tension. Where we want to give, we get joy from giving. We know giving makes a difference, but at the same time, we have a fear of not having enough. So how do we overcome this tension? And so this morning we want to speak into this tension, and specifically, how do we, as we appreciate and as we experience both these sides of the tension, how do we avoid living give-me lives that are self-centered? And so we are in week 3 of our Take Flight series. In week 1, Geordie spoke about if we want our lives to take flight, that we connect. That if we want to make a difference, we connect with each other. Bree spoke last week about we serve. That as we want our lives to take flight and be bigger than ourselves, that we connect and that we serve. And so this morning, we want to speak about this topic of we give. We give. And so this morning, as you're sitting on the couch, my hope and my dream is that as you leave this morning, that you would believe, that you would have this belief that your life will be better, your life will be richer, your life would be more meaningful, your life will make a bigger difference if we live according to this mindset. We don't give. We don't give. So how does that work? So Jesus actually told this story when he was around about a man, and he made up this story that kind of spoke right into this tension that we're speaking about this morning, about a rich young man, and this is what it said. Jesus tells this story, and he says, he tells these people this parable, the story, and he says, the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. So he thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. And I think this guy seems to be killing it. This guy seems to do what we tell our kids to do, to save money for the future, to invest wisely, to retire, to make allowance for our retirement. This guy seems to be killing it, and yet this is God's response to this man. He says, but God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Apparently he was killing it. And then he said, then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it'll be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. Now there's a tension that I experience as I read this story. And like I said, I've got lots of sympathy for this man, because this is what our culture tells us to do, right? In our Western wealthy mindsets, that sometimes, and this is what it sometimes feels like to me, that we seem to always want more so we can need each other a little bit less. And so this man is trying to make allowance for the future, and God says to him that actually what he's doing is actually not being very wise. And there's lots of ways this story has been interpreted, but I think what it comes down to, and what Jesus is warning us, is that all of us, every single one of us, is actually in danger to, just like this man, to get so consumed with wanting more and more for ourselves that we die, maybe not today like this man, but that we die one day having lived a life that was no bigger than ourselves. That all of us are in danger of actually, as our income increases, we simply increase our quality of life. That we're in danger of just becoming rich without becoming rich towards God. That all of us are in danger of having lived a life not any bigger than ourselves. So all of this for this man happened because of an assumption that he made. And it's an assumption that I think will be quite familiar to you and I, because if you're anything like me, we make this assumption on a daily basis. And this is what this man assumed. It's an assumption that Andy Stanley calls the consumption assumption. And it says this, that what comes to me is for me. That because that's my income, because I got that, because I received it, it is for me to use. That because it is in my possession, it is for my consumption. And I think it plays out in all of our lives. How often do we get more money and we think, where can I upgrade? What new clothes do I need? What new car do I want to buy? What new house? Where can I upgrade? And even if it's not things, often it's experiences. Like where can I go next? What next is on my bucket list? Where do I want to travel to? What new thrill, what new experience can I get for myself? Because we assume that what comes to us is for us. Now, this story of the rich young man, it begs a lot of questions. There's a lot of things we can wrestle with. How God wants us to use our finances, how God wants us to view investment. There's a lot of things that we can and I think should wrestle with. But as we do this, let's not miss what I think is probably the crucial statement that Jesus makes. And he makes this fascinating statement at the end of the story where he says this, that this is how it'll be. He just told the man, your life will be demanded from you. You would have lived a life no bigger than yourself. And he says, this is how it'll be with whoever, with all of us, with any of us, who stores up things for themselves, but who is not rich towards God. So the question then becomes, how do we become rich towards God? If this is the warning, how do we become rich towards God when everything inside of ourselves just want to become rich? How do we become rich towards God when we experience this fear of not having enough? How do we, when we get more, give more instead of using more? How do we navigate this fear? How do we become rich towards God when we live in a culture that values everything that this man valued? Security and comfort and abundance and luxury and more and more. How do we live in this culture and still become rich towards God? There was a man that lived a while ago that seemed to have mastered that seemed to have found the key to unlock this tension. This fear of not having enough, that experienced this joy of giving, seemingly without this fear of not having enough. And luckily for us, he actually told us exactly what the secret, what this key ingredient was that allowed him to be free from this consumption assumption and to become rich towards God. It's a man named David, and he was king of Israel, and while he was king, he decided to build this temple for God. And he built it for God, but he also knew that it would actually encourage and help and support the people around him to be able to worship God. And so what he did was he actually gathered all these resources, but then he realized that wasn't enough. So he gave everything that he had and his own resources to build this temple that would bless God, but also bless the people around him. And this is what David writes as he speaks to the people as this temple is being built. David says this, and in this passage, we will find the key to overcoming that tension in our life. David says, I've done my best to get everything together for building this house for my God. All the materials necessary. Gold, silver, bronze, iron, lumber, precious and varicolored stones, and building stones, vast stockpiles I have gathered. Furthermore, because my heart is in this, in addition to and beyond what I have gathered, I am turning over my personal fortune of gold and silver, for making this place of worship for my God. And then he asks and he says, and now how about you? Who among you is ready and willing to join me in the giving? And I love this response. This is what they respond with. They say, ready and willing, the heads of the families, leaders of the tribes of Israel, commanders and captains in the army, stewards of the king's affairs, that willingly they stepped forward and gave willingly. They were already ready. They were just waiting for an opportunity to give. Anyone who had precious jewels put them in the treasury for the building of the temple of God. And the people, and I love this, as they were doing this, as they were giving, the people were full of a sense of celebration. All that giving and all given willingly and freely, and King David was exuberant. Another translation says, the people rejoiced, for they gave freely and wholeheartedly to God. How awesome is this? How fun, how exhilarating. All of them joining and experiencing this joy of giving. But I wonder, how did they overcome this fear of not having enough that we wrestle with? And this next few verses gives us the key that David had to unlocking this fear of not having enough. David then prays to God, and this is what he says. David blessed God in full view of the entire congregation, and this is what he says. Blessed are you, God of Israel. To you, O God, belong the greatness and the might, the glory, the victory, the majesty, the splendor. Yes, everything in heaven and everything on earth, the kingdom, it's all yours. Riches and glory come from you. You are ruler of all. And then I love this, and it says, and here we are, O God, giving thanks to you, praising your splendid name. And then the key to unlocking this fear of not having enough. David prays and he says, but me, who am I? And who are these my people? Who are we that we should presume to be giving something to you? Everything comes from you, God. Everything comes from you. And all we are doing is giving back what we have been given from your generous hand. God, our God, all these materials, these piles of stuff for building a house of worship, honoring your holy name, it all came from you. It was all yours in the first place. I know, dear God, that you care nothing for the surface. You want us, our true selves. And so I have given from the heart, honestly and happily. And now see all these people doing the same, giving freely and willingly. What a joy. I love this. These guys are experiencing the joy of giving. They are living a fun life. They are living a life that has purpose and meaning to it. And they're experiencing joy in the midst of it. All because they chose not to buy into the consumption assumption, which says that just because it came to me, it's for me. Instead, this is how they view it. They say that just because it came to me doesn't mean that it is for me. Just because it's in my possession doesn't mean it's for my consumption. And here is the key, because David says, actually, it is not even in my possession. It all belongs to God. God is the one who gave it all to me. And because I have surrendered, it is now easy for me to give, because I've already surrendered it to God. And this is the key. This is the mindset with which David lives to unlock the key of not having, the fear of not having enough. David says that what I own is not my own. It came from God and it is for God. And I'm going to use it for people and for God because it's God's in the first place. So this morning, as we're speaking about we give, I don't know what giving looks like for you, and maybe that's something you can sit with and pray about. Giving can look different for different people. I know for some it's supporting, maybe even financially supporting someone in your family or a friend who's in need, who's going through a difficult time. I actually, just this week, I heard about a friend of mine, and I never knew this, who he would never tell anyone, but that he was actually supporting another friend of his that was experiencing some health problems and that couldn't work full time. He was actually paying his rent so that he could get the medical support that he needed, and it changed that person's life. And so maybe for you, you are supporting someone, a friend, a family member, financially in ways that no one would ever know. Maybe for you, giving could be contributing financially to Gracegate, where you know that what you give is going to make a difference in the lives of people. Maybe for you, giving is actually spending on and investing in people in this community or in your community in ways that no one will ever know. Maybe for your giving, for you, giving is giving finances in some creative, out-the-box kind of ways. Maybe you are giving time, you are giving energy, you are giving emotional capacity, you are giving a listening ear, a caring heart. But whatever giving looks like for you, hopefully we are not limiting God to just one of these ways. I love how David said, "What I own is not my own. It all belongs to you. All my energy, all my time, all my finances." So, if we go back to the previous slide where it says, "What I own is not my own," imagine if we could take this view with our time, that actually the time we have is not our own. God, how can you use me? Imagine if we could say this about our energy. What I own, the energy I have, is actually not my own. Where can you use me, God? My money, God, what I own is not my own. How can you use me? Whatever resource it is in our life, if we could live with this mindset. But what if we could do it not just where we have abundance, but even when we experience lack? Imagine the richness, how much closer it would bring us to God. So hopefully we are not limiting God by only giving with energy or money or time. Hopefully we can sense God and experience God in every one of these areas. And I think the beauty of that, of giving not just in our abundance, but also in our lack, is that we actually realize that our lack can become someone else's supply. And so this morning, I'll let you sit with whatever you feel giving looks like for you. But before we close today, I'd love to share with you one more story. And it's a story of an old woman who really didn't have much. Just in case you think giving is just for King David, who's got gold and silver, a woman who had, I can assure you, doesn't matter how much you have, she has or had less than you do. It's a woman who lived in the Drakensberg Mountains, this mountain range in between South Africa and Lesotho, in a village where there was extreme poverty. And the story is written by a man who actually relocated his family from the States to this village to go and support and encourage and love and see how they can support this village. But so this man was connected to some churches in the States, and he asked if they could donate or give any finances that they could then use for this village in Africa. They then raised $10,000, and on the morning, that Sunday morning in church, this man was going to announce to this village that they had just received $10,000 to support this village in some real, tangible, practical ways. He said that he shared it with this church, but he was not prepared for what was about to happen next. I'll read to you what he says. He says the whole church began to clap and sing, and the women making this trilling sound with their tongues. They began to dance in groups of 4 to 6. And he says with mesmerizing grace, they would dance towards this handmade altar at the front of the church. And this people who had pretty much nothing gave what they had as a thank offering to God for what they had just received, and not for themselves, but for the village. And they just gave whatever they had. He said this continued for hours. Even the kids, they would beg money from their parents. Then they'd run to the store next door to even make it into smaller coins so that then they could go to the front of the church and give more. This was kids begging for an opportunity to give more. And so these people just gave and gave. And this went on for hours. They gave. And then he says, caught up in the exuberance of the moment, I noticed an old woman sitting by herself, seemingly unaffected by the joy of giving that surrounded her. After nearly 2 hours of spontaneous offering, this woman finally stood up and started making her way to the front of the church. She was aged, with wrinkled flesh, arthritic fingers, and a look of deep concern and determination on her face. She was too crippled to dance and too focused to sing. And as she limped towards the front of the altar, she reached into the front of her blouse and took out a knotted handkerchief. With crooked fingers and teeth, she slowly unknotted this handkerchief to reveal a small coin. When she reached the altar table, she slowly laid her coin on the rough wood. She stood by herself for a moment and seemed to caress the coin before walking back to the bench. This guy then goes over, he looks at the coin, but he doesn't recognize it. And so he goes to this elder and he asks what it's all about. And he goes and speaks to this woman, and this is her story. What she had given was a British halfpenny. It was her life savings and retirement fund. It was all she had. What she did not know was that this coin was taken out of circulation in 1967. It had no value. It could buy nothing. Knotted in her handkerchief, stored in the front of her blouse, this coin measured her hope for the future, and still she gave it all to Jesus. After hearing this story, we wanted so much to empty our pockets to help this old lady for her retirement. But the local leader asked us to leave her alone. And this is what he said. Don't you cheat this woman out of giving everything she has to Jesus. Don't cheapen her sacrifice. She belongs to us, and we will care for her. We will tell of her story of sacrifice, and it will live for generations in this village. We will tell of her story of sacrifice, and it will live for generations in this village. One woman's giving inspired a village. With a worthless penny, the penny was worth nothing. It actually inspired generations. It inspired a village. And how often do we think that my money, my contribution, my little bit, my $5 won't make a difference? When the reality is this woman's coin was worthless in value, but it was priceless in sacrifice. And each one of us within our hands, however much or however little we have, we carry within our hands the potential to inspire a village, to inspire a community, to inspire generations, to create ripples with our generosity. But how often do we sell ourselves short because we feel like what we have is not significant enough? This woman's giving inspired a village, but it also changed her. Imagine the joy, imagine the depth her relationship with God would have grown as she trusted with her little bit. But more than anything, it inspired a village, it changed her, but it also moved Jesus. It moved Jesus. And here's how I know this. Because when Jesus was around, something very similar happened, where a poor widow gave 2 copper coins when all the wealthy gave lots. And this is what Jesus said in response to that. He said, it says, calling his disciples. It's almost as if he says, come, see, like take notice. My attention has been drawn. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she out of her poverty put in everything, all she had to live on. One woman's sacrifice changed a village, or inspired a village. It changed her, and it moved Jesus because she put in everything she had. What about us? This morning, as we navigate the we give topic, and at the start I told you that we don't give, that your life will be better if you don't give. And I know it was a bit of a tricky, misleading statement, but the reality is that history is filled with men and women who have made a difference in this world, men and women who have inspired people through their giving. But the crazy thing is that most of people did not consider what they did giving. It's true for King David. It's true for this woman in the mountains of Africa. That their giving, they did not consider it as giving, but as simply sharing what God had already given them. And so here at Gracegate, imagine if we were a community that said we want to give, but we're not even going to consider it giving. We are simply sharing what God has already given us. That we give, but technically we're not actually even giving, we're sharing. And I like that because sharing really is just giving without the self-entitlement, right? It's giving without assuming that somehow we are more deserving of what we have. It is giving, but it's saying, I'm not generous if I give, I'm selfish if I don't. We don't give, we share. Imagine if we lived so surrendered with our lives, where we said, God, I want to give, but actually, like David said, me, who am I? Who are my people? That we would consider what we're doing giving. How can we be giving to you when actually you've been giving everything to us, and we are simply sharing what you have given us? Imagine if we are known as a community that don't just give, but we share. This morning, as we end today, I want to share just one last thought with you. And it's something that I've been sitting with for the last couple of weeks that's become a challenge that I've set for myself, and that I simply want to share and invite if you want to join me in this challenge. And I was just thinking the other day, you know how every morning we wake up, right? And every morning we wake up with one of two mindsets. Either we're thinking, give me. Either we're thinking, like, I want to receive, I need some more, give me. Or we're thinking, we give. Every morning, either I'm waking up inward focused or I'm waking up outward focused. Every morning, either I'm thinking, where can I get? Or I'm thinking, where can I give? And every morning I choose which one of these I feed. And my mum actually had this fridge magnet when we were growing up, and it said, we make a living from what we get, but we make a life from what we give. And I've been thinking every day, I'm either just creating a living or I'm creating a life of meaning, a life worth living. And the reality is, give me lives will lead to comfort. If comfort is what we're after, if a comfortable life is what we want, then give me is the right mindset. Give me leads to comfort, but a we give mindset leads to purpose. This is a life that David and his men experienced that is full of fun and adventure and exhilarating. David was exuberant, a life of meaning and purpose. And so every morning, I've been trying to challenge myself with this. Either I wake up and I think, God, I need this, or I'm not feeling too great today, or I need a bit more time, I need a bit more energy, I need a bit more money. Or I'm waking up and I'm thinking, God, I am so ridiculously blessed. I've got health. I can see, I can hear, I can walk, I can talk. I'm so blessed. I live in this country. Every day we wake up thinking, man, like I am blessed. God's been giving to us our whole lives. Where can I now give? Where can I extend myself? God, how can you use me? I want to be someone that you can use today to make a difference in someone else's life. Every morning we choose which one of these mindsets we feed. And so as we leave today, as you leave your couch, if you want, you can join me in this challenge. So that when we wake up in the morning, to instead of saying, give me, to say, we give. God, how can you use me? How can you use me today to make a difference in someone else's life? Let's pray together. God, we thank you that we are so incredibly blessed, God. We have a relationship with you. We are loved by you. We have people in our lives. We have health. We can talk. We can walk. We can see. We live in this country, God. We are blessed. You have been giving to us our whole entire lives. And God, we want to stop being so inward focused. And we just want to start asking God, Where can you use me today to actually deliver miracles to people's lives? God, every day we want to wake up and be like David, be like that woman in the mountains of Africa, God, where we want to put in everything. We want to surrender our time and our money and our energy and our capacity and our resources because we want to live lives of meaning. We want to become rich towards you instead of just living, having made no difference to anyone more than ourselves. So God, as we do this, and especially as we do this during lockdown, God, help us, give us strength, encourage us. Give us, like David prayed, sustain in us this ability, this giving mindset, so that we can actually create lives that mean something, lives that don't just become rich, but lives that become rich towards you. And this is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Wow, I feel so encouraged and so challenged by that message today. Really enjoyed what Byron and Volta had to share. But Wiz, what about you? What stood out for you in the program today?
Yeah, I love the theme today, We Give. It's something we really value at Grayscape. And I think both Byron and Volta just echoed today how life-giving it is to actually give rather than just to receive. And I loved what Volta just shared about the story about the old lady. And it's not about how much you actually give, but it's actually God's more concerned about our heart. And really encouraged about that. But more than that, I want to encourage everyone at home. Maybe you feel challenged today, and maybe you actually are just sitting on so much, and you're like, actually, maybe it's time to actually start giving, start helping, joining the rest of the community to actually make a difference and make a financial difference to continue to be able to do the work that we do here at Grayscape. And so if that's you today, I want to encourage you. We got our bank details that are going to pop up on the screen right now, or you can visit our website and you can just go to We Give and you can find all the bank details there. And we'd love you to actually become a part of our community and in a way that you can actually continue to make a difference in people's lives.
We would also love to hear from you guys about what you enjoyed from today's program. So type it into the chat bar or jump online and join us on Zoom straight after the program.
That's right. And today, if maybe you've listened to this message and maybe in some way, shape or form, you're like, man, I really wish there was just someone who could pray for me today. I'd like you to know that we have a team ready right now, willing to pray for you. And you can just click on the prayer box below on your screen, and you'll go into a private chat with one of our teammates who's ready to listen to you and also to pray and encourage you. So please do that if that is you today.
Right, and we have one announcement for today, and unfortunately it's not the most exciting announcement in the world, but our beach day has had to be cancelled for 2021 due to the COVID-19 restrictions in Auckland at the moment. But not all hope is lost. Keep your eyes open, and we will be having some more events popping out over the course of this year. So there's some exciting things that are in the works, so keep your eyes open for those.
Megs, it's been great to be with you today and also to have everyone join us for Church Online. We're so grateful that you could be a part of our program today, and just keep your eyes on the website to see any changes that are going to happen in the next week. Hopefully we're all going to be back in the building next week, but we're not sure. But thanks for joining us, and we hope that you have a great weekend further.